Yeah.
I'm going to start up.
Sounds fantastic.
You
Make
sound
me feel
fantastic.
special, Jim. Tell me that I'm the first in-person guest.
You're not.
Third. Who are the other two? I'm trying to...
Mike's mom.
Right.
And actually fourth.
Jacob.
No.
Jacob Ross.
Okay.
Ramsey.
But you are special. You ready?
I've been on.
Beyond the list of things. Oh, well, you haven't started. Before I suck your dick. Beyond
Beyond the
in-person guest, which is rare and only people that we want to look at.
Yeah.
And beyond the million of other factors that I have in my notes on my phone why you're special, strictly talking podcasts.
Yes.
One, you're tied for my favorite co-host of podcasting with.
Wow. You and myself and...
clearly.
The D.
The D.
Yeah. The D.
That's the new name.
Yeah, that's the name.
Two, you're the first 50% feeler.
Yeah.
100% feeler, 50% factor.
Yeah, Jim, I told Mike.
He came up with our new slogan.
So the new slogan, you put out 50% facts and then below it 100% feelings.
100% feels. I like that.
You're the first to be in both sections of your own podcast. So normally our podcast is split up where me and Jim explore a topic or a question, and then we bring the expert in the second half.
Right.
You're going to interview yourself and then answer yourself.
I'm going to pull the Ben Stiller and Zoolander where he's like, who am I really? Where he looks inside the puddle of water.
Yeah.
That's
You're
me.
both of you.
Okay. Yeah. The real me. What is it from Arrested Development? The man inside me?
Never seen it.
You don't watch it? You have not watched it?
I haven't watched it either, to be honest.
I've heard good things.
I think it is a very funny show. The first 2 seasons I really liked. There's one character in particular, if you guys ever watch it, Job, the eldest brother, that just cracks me up.
Who plays him?
Will Arnett.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
He has that great kind of gravelly, evil, almost sinister voice where he's like, "Hi, I'm Will Arnett." Like, it kind of sounds like that, you know?
I think he does a lot of like voiceover cartoon stuff.
Yeah, I've been watching the crap out of Big Mouth.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet.
I got sick, sadly, when I was supposed to pick him up. I'm like, it's going to be
weird timing, Jim.
It's going to be on my guilty conscience for probably
so you couldn't
year.
make it?
I had to take a $160 Uber with a guy called Barry. And Barry, we have...
like White Barry?
No, more like Barry from Rhode Island.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's
more like...
It's close.
More like Bill Hader Barry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's...
Was he pissed?
No,
because
he
you
was
like
actually
get
fine.
in the car, right? They don't know where you're taking you, and then they press the button and it shows you an hour and a half drive.
What they do tell you is that every ride, he said, and I knew this from before, so I didn't feel guilty. If it's going to be a long ride, they let the Uber driver know. They don't say where, but it's like, hey, I think the minimum distance is about 45-minute travel. So if it's going to be more than 45 minutes, they let you know. But what he said, what was funny, is that driving, so we flew into San Francisco.
Right.
Airport SFO to drive into the city is normally anyways 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So he's like, I sometimes get the notification and I know, I'm just driving them into the city, you know. And then when I saw where we're going, he's like, it's fine, it's no problem. And he actually gave a whole tour of, I guess, from San Francisco to Sacramento, being someone that traveled and moved about a decade ago. Yeah.
So worth it.
Yeah, Barry from Rhode Island, my boy. Instead, I don't know who had the better conversation, us talking about traffic signals that I had with Barry, or what we would have talked about, which is anything except traffic signals.
That's an open question, I think.
Yeah, one open to interpretation.
Yeah, never be answered. There's no answer to that question.
Yeah, it's like
None unlike some other things on this show, but anyway.
Oh, the unanswered. There's a whole black abyss that's underneath. There's
you never know.
Yeah. You never know what you might get into.
When you think you know, you're a beginner or something. I read it on Instagram. A really motivational guy told me.
There you go. Yeah. The Dunning-Kruger effect, where you learn a little bit about... That's basically powerlifting now in a nutshell, I feel. Not to talk about lifting because it's boring. But the Dunning-Kruger effect, where you learn a little bit about something, you're like, I'm a fucking expert.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. This is how you should lift for a powerlifting meet. I'm like, you have a 300 Wilks.
Or you only talk to people that believe what you believe and like, no, yeah, we're all right.
Echo chamber.
Do
you say all right or alt right?
Both cases. Dark. Both cases, probably.
Yeah.
In powerlifting, yeah. A little bit. I'd like to point out that Michael Jordan is over your shoulder now.
He's like making it my corner. I like it.
Yeah.
This room right here, so anyone that's just listening via audio, I'm going to describe it for you. It's a vibe. This actually, it's cozy, but not too clustered where you feel that it's packed. It feels warm and inviting. You have soft lights, so you're not using fluorescent lights. Fluorescent lights are the worst. You're a smart man, Jim. Good ambiance. You have a lot of either posters or things that inspire, motivate. Just it's like a mood feel board on Pinterest. In person.
In person.
Dude, Pinterest is underrated.
I would agree with that.
I worked with
recently discovered Pinterest.
Same.
I'm gonna give
and
you
I
some dirt.
love it. I worked with a logo guy a while ago, or a designer for some stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, I do everything through Pinterest." And I was like, "Oh, fuck it, great," And then he's like, "Just go on there, search some stuff, swipe around, make your little board, and then send me the board, and then I get like inspiration from your inspiration." And then I got stuck in that bitch, bro. There's just like cool shit. There's just cool shit to look at, like whether it's like fucking symbols or fucking tattoos or fucking cars. Like there's just cool shit. Dogs.
My wife does recipes there. She saves all of her recipes are in Pinterest.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yes.
I need some relationship advice. Not about anything right now, but this is how I discovered Pinterest. And that is someone I know, this girl that I was seeing. We talked about various things. And I'm like, yeah, just the big questions. Obviously, I'm like not even close to thinking about marriage or even, honestly, a serious relationship, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, yeah, me too. And then there was something to do with something related with Pinterest where she had a hobby. I'm like, oh, let me check it out.
Keep talking.
So you click on it. You click on someone's profile, and you can see their different Pinterest categories. So you have, like, Mike, for you, I'm making your shit up for Pinterest, your images. It might be basketball. Yeah. It might be whatever.
You found her kinky shit?
No, I wish. No, I introduce people to that stuff.
That's your pins?
So
what's it called? A pin?
Yeah.
Pin?
So like a pin category.
Pin,
so for Mike, it'd be basketball.
Boards. Yeah, boards.
Boards. Thank you. So it'd be Twitch,
basketball guy can't get the
basketball.
boards.
Yeah, can't get the boards, right? Ayo. And so I see her Pinterest, and it's whatever. There's one about athletes because she's an athlete. There's a whole Pinterest on weddings, like wedding dresses.
You broke
and
her
all
heart.
those things. But you say in person, we broach this topic. Oh yeah, no, I'm not even thinking about weddings. And then I don't think that she knew you could click on the person's username, and I didn't know either. I just clicked on it, right? And the third most, and it had, I'm not talking 10 images. Like Connor is a big fan of Kubrick. He has 10 classic shots. It was about 150 wedding dresses and.
And then after that conversation, she went home and grabbed her dolls and said, "I love you, Omar, but we're never getting married." And then they fake kissed, and then she
we can't get
jumped
married
off a
in
cliff.
this life, but we must take poison, so we'll be together forever.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Probably.
Canadian girls are scary.
Girls are scary, Jim. Why do you think we're here in Dude Ranch? There's a couple bros talking about 100% feelings.
So my vibe here, in part, is
I like it, man.
If you're familiar with the Huey Lewis and the News album Sports,
yes,
the cover of that album.
Just remind me. I know that is that the one that has it doesn't have Hip to Be Square, or it does?
I think it does.
Okay. Yeah.
It's their big breakout album.
Yeah. So
okay. So it's got him on the cover, and you can see that he is in a bar, and there's a bunch of shit behind him.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that bar is called the 2 a.m. Club, and it's in Mill Valley in the Bay Area.
Yep.
I went there one time, and what it turns out that they did was take all of the cool shit that's on the walls and rehang it so that it was framed into that shot.
Sure. So it was like condensed into
it was
that shot.
condensed into. So that's my vibe here. Everything is everything I like and might be relevant is condensed. We got superheroes. We have sports figures.
I like it. Joe Montana's behind me.
Yep.
No, I think
I got some shit. I should bring it in here.
Well,
There's like so
Tony
much.
Montana.
I have such cool stuff, and I have nowhere to put it. Like Dr. J signed jersey.
Oh shit.
Joe Montana, Notre Dame, the whole team signed football.
What?
But like, where am I going to put it?
The compact they used on my glutes in LA for the
Lost
first time. A lot. Wow.
Yeah. I bet you some
Jim, I'm gonna have to walk off.
some
this
mega
one.
fan probably stole it.
Yeah. Have you ever had a guest walk off yet?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, just curious.
For us, it'd have to be hang up for us, I think.
Right.
Yeah. For most of the time, we're not working in person.
You know what is disappointing, Jim? The fact that back in the day with dial-up phones, if you were upset at someone, and my mom was classic at this, or something from work because she had a very high-stress job and she handled it incredibly well. But if someone was being inept or something, and then bam, you hear the slam on the phone, and it just makes that it's relative to how hard you slam it. Now with these stupid fucking cell phones,
I think
you
just invented an app.
There you go.
Oh,
you can make a
app.
hang up sound.
You can steal it. But
We just made so much money right now.
Or like a door slam.
Don't release this, Jim, until we get the patent, bro.
Yeah, hold it.
It's our idea. But you like you
Embargo
hang up on a
this
cell
one.
phone, and it's just sometimes I'll be talking to someone.
I hate you, Dad.
What's funny? It's sometimes I'm talking over it, and so I don't even hear it, and so I'll talk for another 10 seconds. I'm like, okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's
Where
true.
it was definitive. That hang up was like, fuck you.
And there's probably like more scuff in the phone call, like the
Oh,
audio's not as clear. So when you're screaming, you probably sounded like more like a monster in the 80s. Where
Yeah.
now it sounds like just me yelling like a bitch. But in the 80s, I sounded like a little. Yeah, I sounded a little gruff.
Yeah.
My only experience like that in my entire life, and I've told this story before, but I want to tell it again because it's my show. Back in the day when I worked in an HMO, we had a contract with the company that was started and owned and the principal source of wealth of Daniel Snyder, who now owns the Washington Redskins.
Wow.
Real money.
Real money. And the guy that worked for him, who was a senior vice president or something like that, had been with him from the beginning, was the person I was dealing with there. And this guy was an asshole. And their group was doing some subcontracted work for us. And it's a highly regulated area. So you have got to toe the line or you're in trouble with the federal regulators. You just have to. And they didn't want to do that, which is pretty much the Daniel Snyder philosophy. If you look closely, it permeated this as well.
Jim, has he been indicted or no? He's still like
No,
okay.
he's still the owner. He's still the owner. He just, and I don't even think he owns Snyder Communications anymore. I think it was maybe sold off somewhere along the line. But he made a shit ton of money doing this. It was primarily a telemarketing thing, but they did in-person sales too. It was the in-person sales part that was really fucking us. And I'm the person who got stuck in the middle telling this guy that he needed to tell his boss that we were going to shut down their operation because they were not following federal guidelines. And this guy just kept yelling at me on the phone. And he's literally the only person I've ever hung up on, just like boom, hung up on.
Not dealing with this.
And I'm not dealing with this. Like, they don't pay me enough. I'm not making enough money to listen to you scream at me.
Yeah.
I just don't
I may
answer
have said
phone
that.
calls. So I've never dealt with an angry person.
Well, that works too.
I probably have.
Do you guys think it's generational? Because now I'm a direct confrontation person or just direct communication. If I want something done, the thing I prefer the most, person to person, face to face. If I can't do that, phone call, text, email.
Yeah.
I also just find it more efficient because sometimes things can be misconstrued.
Yeah.
But these days, there's someone that I know that I train with. He's just younger, let's say, so he's 20 now. And you'll give him a call, and he'll just say, he won't answer. It's like, sup, man? What's good? Like, he'll just respond by text.
Maybe. Because me and you are the same generation. I don't like talking on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never liked it as a kid. Like I can remember being like 7 years old or whatever. My dad be on the phone with my family in Cleveland, like, "Oh, your aunts want to talk to you." I'm like, "Nah, I don't really want to," and then he'd make me.
Well, Mike, with that being said, I think there's a difference between obviously someone that you have no interest in talking to,
No,
or someone that
anybody,
talks.
anybody.
Mike, someone that talks too long. I'm not going to name the name of the person, but there was an individual who. I shouldn't even say it. So I don't mean it negatively. Just the guy did not know when to stop talking.
Yeah.
For business, and so it would be a call. You know, we're going over 5 different things. Right, we need this for the Excel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We go through the list of 5. I say, "Hey man, how's it going?" We talk for a bit, then we close it out, and he would just keep going on. Like he was like an endless cycle where we'd go through 1 through 5, and then he'd want to go through 1 through 5 again. And I tell him, I'm like, "Hey man, I only have 10 minutes for this call." The guy started saying that 34 minutes. And I'd say, "I gotta go." It's like, right. But so what I'm thinking, I'm like, dog. No. So an endless talker, no one wants an endless talker.
No.
I actually greatly appreciate, and this could be like a Seinfeld bit, someone that knows when to just chill the fuck out and like the conversation's done. Where you have that perfect interaction. You're both on a high where it feels really good. All right, man, I'll see you later.
And then get out.
As
It is,
opposed to the linger.
It is
the
weird
lingerer.
where like I just had a business call yesterday with our boy Matt, who works with us and he plays tons of video games with me. He's a really close friend. We play video games every single day.
So you can talk shit all the time about him.
Yeah, all the time. And like he'll hop in and we'll play video games. We're talking shit all day long, whatever. But then the business call comes up like, and then we're awkward, both of us, like, hey man, how are you? I'm all right.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get to, all right. And then we talk, and then we get our work done, and then I'm like, all right. Bye. Bye. But then like I'm literally playing video games with him for 8 hours straight, joking about his mom, and he's joking about how fat I am, just like all day long.
But
like,
that's different.
yeah, but then all of a sudden it's just me and him on my actual phone, like, hi Matt. Bye.
Because it's just you. It feels maybe like it's just you and him in the room as
I don't
opposed
know.
to playing online. You
That's-
feel like there's a community.
I'm just awkward. That's what I'm breaking it down to. I'm just fucking weird. I'm getting weirder.
Weirder with age.
Talking on the phone is not my favorite thing to do either, to be honest with you, and I'm definitely not the same generation. But it is also weird to carry this thing around in your pocket that's supposed to be a phone, and you never use it for one. Hardly ever use it for one.
Right. Yeah, it's like its fifth cause is to be a phone now, or fifth purpose. What's weird too is that people's assumption that my phone's on me because of society and our culture, and that I'm just gonna answer. Like, I'm not that busy. Like, oh, bro, you didn't answer. Like, bitch, I'm busy, and I didn't want to talk to you, and I'm awkward.
Which one is it?
And I'm fucking awkward.
Yeah. Well, my palms are sweating.
Yeah, I have clammy hands. I didn't want to talk to you. Fuck you.
I could drop the phone because my hands are so slippery.
Why are you calling me on my little computer in my pocket?
Well, somewhere along the line, it turned into like an ambush. If you get a real phone call.
Yeah, same with people coming to your door.
Yeah,
don't come to my door, you fucking creeps. It's 2019.
I think now it's a level of severity that you assume when someone's trying to call you. It's like, it must be something serious.
I panic. I for sure panic, and I already have anxiety issues beyond belief. But if I get a call from somebody, even my mom now, she's more inept at like texting me first. If she calls me, I'm like, fuck, something's wrong.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think that there are certain people too that like when you get a text from them, you experience anxiety from it. I do.
Yeah.
I used to. I think I've cut most of those people out of my life at this point.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I've had tons of people like that. Yeah, I've had
feels so much lighter.
Yeah,
tons of people
light
in
as a
situations
feather
like that.
So our tricorders that we use, that were what we saw in Star Trek.
Yeah,
they have. Or what was the thing that
he's a Star Trek guy, not me.
Yeah, so it'd be what was it called?
Yeah, the communicators.
Yeah, the communicators.
Yeah.
It was like, what a crazy concept that'd be in the future, right, guys?
Yeah.
Or like video. I remember Back to the Future 2 had it. All the movies kind of from the 80s was soon Blade Runner. Soon you'll be able to communicate by video. And we were thinking, the mid 90s, that's a long way from happening. And then it happens and everyone's kind of like the concept of FaceTime, where it was so futuristic in the 80s.
Yeah, slipped in so easy.
The thing, I think the most accurate portrayals of the future are ones in which we take for granted the new technologies. Much like how we take water is the most precious resource, fresh water. But we take it like here, in America and Canada, we have no regard for its actual value. The same idea, these technological revolutions that have occurred, kids that grow up today, that they're just assumed that this whole social media stratosphere that exists, it's always been a thing, you know what I mean? Like, I want to talk to my mom, I could just FaceTime her,
Well, interesting that you should say that, because I just heard that there's a new spin-off of The Walking Dead coming, and the deal is that it's kids who basically grew up since the zombie apocalypse.
Sure.
So they have never known anything else but the zombie apocalypse, and so like they're going to have different personalities than people who are
could be interesting.
or whatever.
You know what I don't like is so I do read graphic novels, comic books on occasion. I read The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
I read up to issue, I think it was 98. So I read quite a bit of it, and to me, I would need to keep reading to see where it goes, or the TV show. So I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I'd say probably season 5 is where I'm up to. But a show, and I'm not accusing it of this, that doesn't know when to end, and maybe so I just ended season 5 of Game of Thrones, but where there's a season 8, then it's going to be done. They might do spin-offs. I appreciate when a creator knows, and you could see that intent. Sandman, Neil Gaiman, graphic novel, comic, one of my favorites, top 3 easy of all time. It's clear the intent, whereas The Walking Dead, after I'm at issue 98, I'm like, how long is this thing going to go on? The premise seems so fresh.
Seems simpler in a graphic novel world, although I know nothing about that or the business model, than in a corporate HBO world.
What do you mean?
Where Walking Dead was literally created as a TV show to make money. Where
No, Walking Dead was a comic book for a long time.
I know. But the difference is the comic book was created as an artistic storytelling piece.
Yeah.
The TV show was created to make money.
So you're saying why they'll continue to make seasons?
Yeah.
So now there might be so I think you could be right in that when the first season came out, there's 60 issues of the comic book, and then when it became a big success, it's like, well, keep churning it out.
Yeah. The only reason for the TV show is to make money. The potential, and I'm sure there's some money obviously involved in graphic novels, but potentially the main goal is to entertain and create your story or what you want to do.
I think people make money off graphic novels.
I think so too, but I think I'd like to think, and I don't
know what it was before, but
and again, I don't know anything about that world, but in my head, it seems like someone who's going like, I want to write a graphic novel is doing it out of love of the medium, and there's probably less hands involved rather than a show on TNT or whatever.
There has to be a greater artistic pursuit. You want to produce something because it's not the easiest way to make money.
Right.
Or
talk
about my favorite topic,
and it's
now.
just
Like,
simple.
love with the craft. for the love of money.
And it's just simpler. I'd imagine it's simpler to get produced than going to TNT and putting a 8-season show together. That's literally just a machine to make money. This conversation came up in a random political debate, and it got weird politically, and I don't know why, because it doesn't seem that political to me. I guess it does. What they were talking about is movies and what tier has more power in making the movie. Obviously, actor, director, producer, Universal as a company or Disney as a company. And one side was saying, I believe it was actually the right side, was saying like, oh, all these people are out there pushing their political and moral values through their movies. And then the more left side was saying like, no, you're a fucking idiot. Disney's pushing how to make money, and so they make movies on how to make money.
They're trying to appeal to particular people.
Or what they're making a movie to make the most money, regardless.
Yeah.
And if
I think now, money. I think it's money.
No, I agree. I would agree. And sure, a director may be able to try to do some stuff to put their inspiration in that, but if it's crossing a line that's not going to make money anymore, he's getting fucking cut.
Well, why do you
and
think,
that scene's getting fucking
why
cut.
do you think the superheroes or Star Wars? That's why Disney's handling of Star Wars, people got upset over The Last Jedi, but I saw their claws from the get-go because they did it to Marvel when they acquired. People love and Avengers and all those Marvel movies. Sure, are they enjoyable? Yeah, but X-Men I remember, and that actually I think is 20th Century Fox. But when they first kind of took it over and what ended up happening, a similar thing happened now with Star Wars, where it turns into a vehicle, as you said, Mike, to make money. And one of the clear signs to me is the emerging Asian market, so China being a major player, where Star Wars now is featuring more Asian characters, and they would say, Disney's like, well, we want diversity in our actors. I'm like, nah, you want to make a lot of money. Yeah. And they said the same thing when it comes to Marvel, a relatively unknown superhero that isn't very popular in the rankings, but they're going to make an Asian superhero film now for Marvel because they want to hit up that huge demographic. It's not about representation. It's not about trying to give voices to people that don't have voices. Like, you're going to make billions of dollars.
And I'm sure in America, if you look at maybe who watches these type of movies the most, it might be people on the coast, and those people on the coast also want to see more diversity. So by doing that, they're also going to make more money that way. Yeah,
and also I think simply put, to keep things fresh, Jordan Peele said something that got him into a lot of controversy when he said Us. He released the movie Us, and he said someone asked him about casting, what his casting choices would be for the future, right? And he said, yeah, I think I'm going to continue to feature predominantly black leads in my films. The white dude being the hero. I've already seen that movie, and people was like, yo, imagine if it was the reverse, how racist it would sound, blah blah blah. I'm like, I think they're missing the point in that there's been a great body of work with a few perspectives, and so just the fact that you're putting out something that maybe isn't exactly what was seen before is enough of a novelty that people will want to see then those movies. So I think Disney is not trying to capitalize from a social justice standpoint so much as a monetary, where they know that, oh, well, this kind of like this twist, it hasn't been done before, therefore, or it's like, oh, this is going to be great in, or whatever, the Middle East, like this, like the Aladdin as an example. Aladdin's like casting the role of the actors and so forth is like, is that in order to honor the story more truthfully in their portrayal? It's like, or are they trying to break into new demographics? I can't wait until Disney tries to break into Bollywood. I just can't wait. You know what I'm saying?
They did.
They did?
I believe Slumdog Millionaire is produced by Disney, but don't quote me.
Ooh, that's a question. Yeah, I don't know.
I believe it was.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I believe it was a Disney film.
That movie was crazy because of the final production number.
Yeah.
Over the credits. Like, what the hell? Like this was a movie. This was just a movie. And then now we're going to have a song. Yep. And we're going to have a dance. Yeah. And we're going to see the characters that were already dead, but they're not those characters anymore. They're just the actors, and this is a celebration of the fact that we made a movie.
So Jim, I am a cinephile, is what I call myself. I'm sure Connor sitting over there would agree. And for a long time, I did there's Satyajit Ray is the name of the director. He has this trilogy that anyone that likes film should watch called the Pather Panchali trilogy. That's amazing. Anyways, when I saw some Bollywood movies, in the last while, I'm thinking to myself, all this dancing, what's it about? This guy exists outside of Bollywood, but he's Desi, so he's from that area. But I would see Bollywood movies instead. I'm like, wait a second, what's with all this dancing? And then I did have a revelation relatively recently where I thought to myself, like, here in America, like, musicals are fucking stupid too. Like, in my personal opinion, like, it's what I want to enjoy. There's a certain level of escapism that's just not for me. But probably another culture looking at Hollywood movies, like Bing Crosby, or I'm blanking on the two that were the
Singing in the fucking rain.
The classic,
Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire.
Boom.
Yeah.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah. It's like, if you see those movies, well, they might have that pizzazz. I'm like, all of a sudden you find out your mom's dead. You leave the house and you're like, sing. Like, you just start singing and dancing. Like, nah, wait a second. To me, it's
the same.
It's more similar, but
yeah, I don't have any problems with any of that stuff, and I'll tell you why. Every time I look at a movie, I think, okay, so they're trying to tell us a particular story, and this is a world that exists by itself. This is separate from the world that we live in.
Yeah.
There's a story that they're trying to tell. These are the characters they're using to tell the story. This is the conflict that they're using to tell the story. It's just I'm always a step removed from it. It doesn't mean I can't have an emotional reaction to it, but I'm always a step removed for it. I always know how things are coming into the...
So you're able, Jim, to suspend that? Because I think that's the big question, is suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, I suspend it's like a musical. You can't enjoy a musical without suspending disbelief, because people don't walk around and just sing. Well, I mean, they do, but not like that.
Yeah.
It's not good.
And they don't dance as well as that.
They don't dance as well as that, and it's not organized.
The bartender doesn't hop into my routine.
Yeah. And so, same thing with comic books. It's the same deal, that you're trying to tell a story, and this is the world that we created to tell this story.
Yes,
and these characters have particular and yes, there are going to be truths about life, about humanity, about fate, about all those things that are buried in there, and they're going to be told in a particular way, and some of them are going to be left ambiguous for a reason.
Yeah.
And people are supposed to identify, they find themselves in there, and it doesn't matter whether the character's real or not. What matters is if the character's emotions feel real, if they resonate in some way. That's all that really matters. So none of those things really bother me, and I'm always kind of at two minds, or maybe three, because sometimes I'm just looking for how a movie was shot, how it's composed, the lighting.
More analytical.
Yeah, it's like a lot of stuff going on at once. So something has to really, really suck for me to not find a way to appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, having said that, there's some stuff that really does suck. But
I think this is the first year I've ever, and I've been in musicals. Thank you very much.
Same.
First year ever.
I did not have that honor.
In YouTube, obviously, in this production and productions that were supposed to head to TV, and like a variety of different types of whatever you want to call it, performance art. And this is the first year, and created my own. This is the first year I think I've watched movies, TV series, etc., and actually looked at how things are shot. Yeah, like you're talking about. It just never crossed my mind. I never even thought about it like during the thing. Not that I would get so lost in this thing. I'm like, oh, fucking Optimus Prime, I'm so lost in your world, but I would just never even care. But now, like, and I think actually part of it was that I just bought a fucking ginormous TV.
That might have something to do with it. Yeah.
I've never really had one in my life. Yeah. I would always had like normal ass TVs, like not big, not small, but normal. And Omar sees it now, and like you sit on my couch, and if you turn the lights off, you do get pretty stuck in this TV.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love
it's a good
TV.
size. And so like watching Game of Thrones or watching whatever fucking Planet Earth or whatever, you're like, fuck, that's a hell of a shot. Like, how did they get that motherfucking dolphin flying that way, you know?
Rolling back to Neil Gaiman for a second, the first season of American Gods was amazing.
So I read the book, and I enjoy his handling, Jim, of mythology just in all his works. There's a parallel. So if you like American Gods, check out, consider the novel, and then he has a parallel novel that takes place in the same world called Anansi's Boys. Fantastic. But sorry, go on.
My whole rest of my family has read the book. I haven't read the book.
Yeah.
I watched the first season. The second season is not nearly as good because it's not tracking very well, but it's so beautifully shot that I'm blown away every single week. It looks so good. It's just that, and the performances are fine. It's just the plotting is not there this season for whatever reason. It's just not nearly as good, but it's just so beautiful. Another thing that I've been watching because it's about to end is Into the Badlands.
Heard of it?
It's about okay. So I watched the first 2 seasons, I believe, and that's where it's like spoiler, but he gets the main character, I'll just say, gets sent away
Yeah.
So I'm at that point.
Yeah.
Does it pick up from there? Because Jim, I'm very on the border with that show where I enjoy the action sequences. I heavily enjoy. The world building is okay. It feels almost. Did you guys have the Space Channel in America?
Space Channel, a couple of different channels have carried the Space Channel programming in the United States. So like Sci-Fi being one of them.
Exactly.
National Geo or something?
It just depends.
So it feels like so back in the day, and I haven't watched Farscape, but some of the like Babylon 5 where it just feels very TV, and some of it's good. Like once again, I like Next Generation, I like Picard. So I was on the fence. You'd say it gets better?
It gets deeper. I don't know if it gets better, but like I'm so completely bought into the story at this point that and there's so much that isn't explained, and then
that's cool.
Yeah, and they said, okay, this is what we're doing, and we're not going to explain it.
It's not J.J. Abrams style though,
No.
which is my least favorite. Where it's called the "What's in the Box," where it's not about what's actually in the box. It's about piquing the interest of wondering what's in the box, and so there's never the intent. So a well-crafted story like Neil Gaiman, for me, he knows his world. He knows the ending before he starts the story. Right?
Yeah.
He has the structure, and there's then not that there's meaning when it comes to Lost, which I think he either produced or he wrote, or just some of his works that I've seen. There's like, oh, I wonder what's going on there. I wonder what's going on there, and then it leads to nothing because there is no greater hierarchy of the things that they're showing. It's more just about like, oh, that's interesting. And so into the Badlands, it wasn't that at all. It's that I'm kind of done with quasi Hunger Games. Divergent, all those words. The young hero, the young boy that has special powers that is somehow going to unite or bring about justice. I'm like, okay, I've seen this already before. Like, come on, man.
So did you watch the Maze Runner series?
Exactly. So is it similar to that? I've only watched the first movie.
Okay,
I was on a plane. I was on the plane and I was like, I'm bored.
I liked Hunger Games.
I've seen,
but I don't know if I like the other two.
The first Hunger Games was maybe the best. I don't know, maybe the second one.
I can't think now because I saw them as it came out.
Have you guys read The Giver?
Yeah.
So the original dystopian.
That's like one of the few books I've ever written.
Yeah, and it's good. It's good, but like every book, or y'all out there, I'm the biggest Frank Herbert Dune fan. The original, I forget the
first three.
I forget what it's a coming of age story. There's a particular term to it, and I think it's Latin. I don't want to mess it up, but it's classic in literature. Dune is kind of one of the first ones where it's a coming of age story of the hero that must take on the mantle to rescue things. So once again, like a Hunger Games
hero's
diversion.
Journey kind of.
But the second book actually inverts that completely, and it turns into Greek tragedy, where it's the myth of the hero then. But all these is just like like this girl that has all these powers. It's like young boy that was a slave that I'm like, okay. When they just turn a little bit into escapism, where it's a power trip. I'm a Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid type of guy.
Speaking of that kind of storytelling and the interplay between the audience and the medium, last summer went to the Globe Theatre in London, Royal Shakespeare Company, saw a play that I'd never heard of before that Shakespeare apparently was a co-author of or whatever, and it is so clearly just an entertainment. Yeah, and it is so set up for that kind of theater. Like I think if you saw it somewhere else, you would get anything out of it. Yeah. And I really want to see like one of the more mainstream plays in that Globe environment, because you're like, either you're a groundling, you're literally down on the ground and like right up on the stage. You can lean on the stage. You can like get super close to the actors and see the performances, or you can be in the boxes, and you're like basically you're leaning forward, and it's open air, and it's misty, and all that stuff, and all that atmospheric stuff plays into the show that you're watching.
Very cool
as well, super cool. But at the same time, it's like those mainstream plays. It was reflective of some parts of the human experience, but it was a story intended to entertain you for however many hours. Yeah, carry you away for that period of time. It wasn't supposed to be, it's not a documentary. Even a documentary is not a documentary.
Oh, for sure. And I think a lot of people don't realize what you just said. And I think also, once again, when it comes to this, I fully recognize I'm not trying to be hoity-toity with anything that I say. These are all subjective experiences, things that we like. You're talking to the guy that loves Trailer Park Boys, right? So I'm not like this show, that show. But I think, Jim, you said something, I can't help it. It's like when I listen to music, I think about either the parts or how I would personally change things, arrange, whatever, because like playing music. when it comes to crafting a story. Game of Thrones, we're watching, and I'm not going to spoil it, but we're watching season 5, and like a full episode before something happens that was like unexpected. I'm like, I think this is gonna happen.
Oh, yeah.
This is gonna be the way. Like, just thinking like, what would, as a writer, what would be the good thing to happen? And so, you know, if they tell a well-crafted story that a lot of people enjoy, and as Mike said, the intention, I think, is everything. Where, to give Game of Thrones credit, and I know there's diehards of the books that say, you know, it's not the same. Kind of like with Lord of the Rings. At least if there's the intention to have artistic merit, then we're cool.
Yeah, I've heard there's less complaints about Game of Thrones, and maybe I haven't talked to as much people, but there's like a lot of complaints of every fucking.
So I respect is what I'm saying. I'm not trying to be a hater.
Yeah. But every book in the fucking planet, Lord of the Rings, I think is a big one.
Oh man,
Hunger Games, whatever you name it, everyone says like Wizard of Oz, like books 1,000 times better. I haven't heard that as much with Game of Thrones.
No, and like I said, crafting.
And I haven't read any of it. So
when you take a look,
I haven't read any of it either. So
when you take a look at a world that big, it's hard. But there's an interesting question to open up for you guys, and that is one concern.
Hey, this is our show.
Well, I'm interviewing you now, guys. This is the 100% Feelings podcast, and that is just Star Wars. And so, there's a great article. I don't want to butcher it. But essentially what it is what a novel does, besides being a different medium, a different experience where you read the words and then you create something in your own mind. A TV show or movie, it's telling you. It's a visual experience. You can interpret it once again in your thinking too, but there's much more imagination that you have to have in a book to create your own stories. Cool. But what books have in common with Star Wars is that it's a prior either mythology, perception of the universe that you have. So everything you put out after that point, you already have an idea of what Star Wars is. And so what the individual is saying about bodies of work that have become part of the public consciousness is that it's almost impossible, was his argument, and I don't necessarily agree, to please everyone once everyone owns Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like Star Wars.
Are you saying because Star Wars is such a pop culture phenomena, whether you've seen it, you haven't seen it, you have a preconception of what it is, and if you've seen the original 3, you definitely have a preconception of the world and the lore that you perceive. Imagination, you almost build your own world in your head for the other 6 episodes, kind of.
Yeah, and then on top of that, Mike, nostalgia plays a huge role. Where, as we're talking about gym environments off cameras, that things might not be as good as you remember them. So you remember as a kid, just simply put, right? Like the Star Wars movies, I recently rewatched them, and I think we all know this. Empire Strikes Back, I do think is a great movie,
it's the best one.
And A New Hope, I do like. I like, I don't want to say the novelty, but the experience was new for the time, absolutely, and I really do like it. Return of the Jedi, as a kid, I wasn't able to identify certain things, and I don't think it's as flawed as people say it is, but that nostalgia of the experience of what Star Wars meant to you as an individual, where it opened up a new world, it's almost impossible then to match that for an adult, to make a piece of work that matches the nostalgia that you have, not even the artistic merit, but the nostalgia. And so I was just wondering about you guys, what you think about Star Wars being used as a proxy for that.
Wow, I saw Star Wars without having any previous experience with Star Wars. I mean, I saw it after my freshman year of high school for the first time in the theater. And my only real science fiction background was Star Trek, which is a different thing.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there was definitely some stuff stolen from Star Trek for Star Wars, but in general, it's more of a kind of epic fantasy story than a real science fiction thing. And there were things about it that disappointed me the first time. It's like, why the fuck did Obi-Wan have to die?
Yeah.
Obi-Wan was one of the best characters.
No.
Why did Obi-Wan die?
Yeah. And was that, I forget, was that, because I want to read, Jim, and I'm sure, anything that we like, we take an interest in. There is the original screenplay or script idea by George Lucas that is adapted in a graphic novel called The Star Wars. Have you heard of this?
I've read that.
Yeah. Oh, you read it?
Well, I read what came out. I read the novelization.
Luke Star Killer.
And then there's that. Yeah, and I've read through that. It's really bad. It's really bad.
Let's be clear, is that
it used to be available on the internet. I don't know if it still is.
So I'll put it this way. I think, and it's not taking anything away from Star Wars, because I think for us, it was a formative experience watching Star Wars. George Lucas, how I would rank a director is if you're able, not consistently, but you have several works of art that you're able to clearly show wasn't a fluke of circumstance, this cinematographer, this time, this actor, like everything came together. Then you're elevated, right? Like Kubrick, the way he shoots things, every single one of his movies is, you could go through the
repeatable.
list. It's repeatable. With Lucas, you do see that how juvenile it is. And there's an interview with, and not Star Wars as a whole. The final product is much better than I think his intention was.
Yeah.
There's a hilarious interview that's available on YouTube with Mark Hamill, where he made a call as an actor not to say a line, and he was staunchly against it. George wanted him to say it. I'm not going to repeat it because I'm going to butcher it, but it's something about asteroids. With Han Solo when he says, "Watch yourself, kid, or you'll find yourself floating home."
Yeah.
So Mark Hamill was supposed to say a line when they find out that the planet blew up that is so cringy. Like, he said it out loud in the interview, but George insisted like this was a line you must say. But all those little choices that could quickly, as an example, with the prequels, where people, I think the prequels, the Shakespearean tragedy is better than people realize. The actual films are terribly flawed.
Yeah.
But the bones are there. Lucas just doesn't know what to do with it. But there's at the very end when Darth Vader's Vader for the first time and he says no, that one moment, like that one artistic choice can really fuck up a film. There's a few choices I think in Star Wars it could have went real south real fast.
Well, Star Trek 2, when Kirk says, Kwan!
Yeah.
Kwan!
Yeah.
Kwan! That could have broken that movie.
Yes.
But it's one of the most iconic moments in that movie.
Yes. Fine balance of the editing, the cinematography, everything that comes together. It's so interesting.
I was going to say something about the prequel trilogy. I just watched a video yesterday from Ahmet Best, who played Jar Jar Binks.
Yes.
He got so much personal hate.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
He was young, too. He was just in his 20s when he did that role.
Yeah.
And he thought he was doing something kind of important, and he was part of a thing that was really cool and something he'd always admired or whatever. He got so much personal hate on it that he almost committed suicide.
Yeah.
Like, it's very...
And the child actor that did Anakin, I heard a similar thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's it's worth watching. The video's worth watching. But he was walking across the Brooklyn Bridge, and he actually stepped out into the part where there's just like girders, and it's open below. And he really thought about just like, I could just go now and I wouldn't have to deal with this anymore.
So I'm gonna start going.
And then there was a strong wind and he almost fell.
Nope.
He caught himself. Nope. I'm probably gonna be okay.
Yeah, I don't want to get too real.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave a comment about that. What I want to say just quickly for all the movie nerds out there, and I could talk about this all damn day. I'm so glad, Jim, you brought this up because you said Star Trek is Douglas Trumbull. People should look him up. You know who he is.
Yeah.
He did 2001: A Space Odyssey, one of the best for special effects all time, assisted in Blade Runner. This guy called Jodorowsky wanted to adapt Dune. He sought him out for special effects, turned him down. Lucas also pitched him for Star Wars, and Douglas just didn't want to do the project. If you actually take a look at the Star Trek movie, the motion picture, the special people make a big deal out of Star Wars, and it is great. But Star Trek, actually, the motion picture has, in ways, superior special effects. Just an interesting thing where, like,
what year did that come out? The first one.
79.
So similar.
Yeah, but he developed. So he did 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like Star Wars borrowed from 2001, and Douglas is the OG. And then he did some of that. And there's a few. It's not silent running. There's a few movies that aren't particularly awesome that he did do the special effects where you just see those bits and pieces. So like Lucas is able to use for a mainstream movie some of these special effects before they get to the masses. I mean, there's Kubrick with 2001, but he like all those interesting choices. One of the things, Jim, that no one has ever said, I haven't heard it that much about the prequels, that it was just a weird choice on his part, and to me it just shows a lack of social awareness, is the fact that in the original 4, 5, and 6, when an alien speaks a language, it's not discernible what the origin of that language is. So when Jabba the Hutt speaks, it just sounds like alien, for lack of a better word. Like, no. You're like, that's no language. The prequels, every single alien is a caricature of either a ethnicity, a culture, something. So like Misa Jar Jar Binks, right? Where they do that, and then all the Gungans, where they're all like either it's like Caribbean folk or patois or just all that, or then once again the Trade Federation. Who's the Trade Federation? Where it's like the Trade Federation, where they talk like that. I'm like, that's like man. That's, and some people might say you're reading too much into it. Watto, the guy, the junkyard where
Pod
he has
racer guy.
like a Semitic where he's like, the money is like, I don't know about that. Just all the stuff like, yo, like George, you went from the aliens just being aliens to then every alien is kind of like maybe a background. Like I don't know. It's kind of fucked up.
The first one though, for sure, A New Hope does like highly revolve around only like I guess humans or whatever you want to call Luke talking. Compared to like the prequel 3, there's a lot more like Jar Jar's in every fucking scene in the first one. You know, like he's the sidekick, and so they do like it would be real hard if they had to. Maybe
like,
that's.
why
I'm
that
just trying to
accent, bro,
play
is
devil
what
advocate.
is
No,
all-
I agree. The accents suck. Even them just speaking English.
Yeah.
Kind of sucks. Like you said, like
Chewie,
Jabba,
bro.
didn't, Chewie didn't, and then the guy in the bar is the only other alien I can think about in like A New Hope.
R2D2.
Yeah, none of them speak fucking English.
So I will say this. I will drop it as I've been working in my head on a 3-part just trilogy story I write on my own. I'm trying to adapt actually a graphic novel of something. But one of the problems when it comes to world building, which should always be the first question, that's why I like Frank Herbert, Dune, where he answers the question. It's like there's no aliens. It's like so he sets conditions in his world and then he adheres to that logic within it. One of the ones about Star Wars that even the new ones, it's within all of them. But as you watch more sci-fi, you know, as you said, Mike, you get more into something. Like you watch shows so much, you start noticing like, oh, this is how it's created, like, whether you want to or not. But yes, Star Wars has the human problem, and the human problem is that the humans are always just there. They're the biggest players in the entire galaxy. They comprise, like, stormtroopers are all humans.
but what planet are they from? They're from all planets.
Yeah, they're all so it's like aliens are basically a minority of the subset of the population, and the galaxy is, unless you go to dingy cantinas, in which case there's a lot more aliens, but by and large, like,
or wherever you got
Force,
the clones, there's only one type of people there for some reason.
Yeah, and eventually they show the Senate and all that stuff. But when we just talk about suspending the disbelief, and I'm not even a huge Star Trek guy, but with Star Trek, it's, you know, humans are, the Federation is one group, and there's thousands of other ones, right? Humans are just a small player, and I actually think a story that would be cool and part of the concept with this one, and it's been done before, that's not the unique part, is that humans are actually very low on the totem pole of aliens. We're not high up there. We're not, you know, once again, ruling the galaxy.
Yeah, Star Trek, just play devil's advocate, because Star Wars is all over the fucking map for sure. But, like, Star Trek is set in, like, our world.
Yeah.
In a sense, right?
for
like,
sure.
they're
Our world
lost.
in the future, yeah.
Yeah, and, like, Star Wars specifically says they're out in the middle of fucking nowhere.
It is a cool line,
but it is
Mike.
fucked up where the humans are.
It's a cool line where it says a long time ago, where it's like, this is in the past, and in a galaxy far, far away from here. It's like, this is just... Dog,
they set you, but they set you up from the beginning words like we could do anything now, bitch.
No, for sure.
We could do anything right now.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting to see where people go and what stories they want to tell, and even there's now it's become a meme. Like people roast obviously the prequels, Jim, but the line that people use, and it's a clip, it's from behind the scenes of the first movie, and George Lucas says, "Jar Jar Binks is the key to all this." Is the line that he said?
Well, have you seen the YouTube video with like a billion?
Jar Jar?
Yeah, it's got like a billion views.
Is that the one where
they say Jar Jar's the hidden Sith?
Oh no, I haven't seen that one. There was one that was part of a competition that was run probably 15 years ago or more, where there was people who were supposed to make Star Wars concept short films, and this particular one was George Lucas. It was animated. George Lucas explaining to Jar Jar Binks that he was no longer going to be the center, but before he was going to be the center of the whole trilogy, and like all of the parts that he was, you know, parts of the story that he was going to interact with, how he's the Christ figure of the whole whatever. Oh my God, it's so good. And the guy who does George Lucas's voice is spot fucking on.
You know what I gotta say, Jim, and this is the idea, and hopefully I'm just putting it out into the universe because I'd love to see it develop. Is one where my brother is even more particular than me when it comes to music, art, film, whatever. There's something called the demastered editions, where now Disney only sells the ones that have Hayden Christensen or whatever his name is inside of it. So the demastered returns the movies to the originals exactly as they're intended. But the contributors that did it, I remember laughing out loud when I read it. It'll be like whatever, like Bill Jones. They could have aliases or the real names, like Bill Jones, and then someone else is like Fat Boba Fett or whatever. And then my favorite one was a guy by the name of Darth Lucas. He put his name as like Lucas is like a Sith. But there's a guy everyone should check out on YouTube that did. It was all on his own. and it's from the perspective of the Empire. It is essentially drawn in the 80s anime style, so hyper detailed, and it's about TIE fighters. I think a true Star Wars animated series with high-level animation. So for everyone that has Netflix, Castlevania. Recently, there's a writer by the name of Warren Ellis. He has an iconic work called Transmetropolitan. He wrote a screenplay. They made it, Castlevania, into a show for Netflix. If Star Wars, if Disney just got their head out of their asses and stopped doing, the Star Trek Rebel or whatever it's called, the Clone Wars, where it's that weird 3D.
Rebels, yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. This guy, it has millions of views on YouTube, and everyone's like, this should be adapted. It's not my point with Disney. It's not hard, I feel, to appease the fans what we want in ways. But yeah, just their...
Well, coming out with a streaming service, so if you ever had a chance, it would be now.
Yeah, so everyone listening, please. It's like, I love video games, like Mike. Sega's one of my favorites. Sonic, for the long time, they're releasing shit Sonic games.
Yeah.
Finally, Jim, what they did is they listened to one guy who developed basically not pirated versions, but he would make levels of Sonic on his own. So Ultra fans do that. And he released them, and they're very popular. Like, you know what? This guy that spent the last 20 years loving Sonic and knows everything about Sonic, let's give it to him, and we'll finally do a reboot of Sonic, and it's called Sonic Mania. And I played it. It's amazing because if a guy understands the world better than the creator, you give it to that guy.
Creator might be dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that actually kind of reminds me back to Star Wars for a second. There was that whole multi-decade long expanded universe of Star Trek stories that they pretty much wiped away, and they thought, now it's all legends, and we're going to do whatever we want to. And most of those stories were probably better, but they were conceived over time.
Yes, Jim.
By people who were out. They were farther from the flagpole, so they had a clearer view of what was going on.
And time sifts through that.
Yeah.
Well, just the concept. This great writer Nassim Taleb talks about this. That essentially, time is a good arbiter in ways. It's not perfect, but the idea that something that survives hundreds of years, like Shakespeare is an example. We're talking about Shakespeare. Probably on average, it's a better piece of work because it's being passed down. It has some sort of significance. There is human error, right?
Yeah.
But probably on average, something that's been passed down and something that's coveted over time, it probably has some artistic merit. The same idea they do with comic books. That's why when people only watch, Christopher Nolan's Batman as a character has evolved over 60 years of writing. You've had individuals like Frank Miller with Dark Knight Return. And over time, that mythology becomes part of the public consciousness, and people accept and then reject, so much so that the expanded universe, you're totally right, it's had 30 years of stories. The stories that are good, guess what, rise to the top. The bad stories that are released, like there's a story from 1984, no one remembers that. And so it's a natural sifting out process of what's good and what's not.
I remember that the first book that I read I think maybe it was the first Star Wars book after the first movie was Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and that's one that people still think of as a touchstone.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff was built off of that, and wiping that away was probably a big mistake. Somewhere along the line. Yeah. Now they're talking about revisiting those stories.
Oh, well,
because people have dismissed a lot of what they've done.
Yeah,
right.
And I don't think that anything has to be perfect. I think things are more interesting when they're imperfect.
Yes.
Something that really irritates you about something that you saw, it's definitely more memorable than something that was an exact fit to your aesthetic or whatever. Which is my content theory, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my content theory is resonant but imperfect.
Love it.
So that's what I always try to think about. It's like, how will people resonate with it, but they're going to be a little bit irritated because it doesn't fit everybody's aesthetic, their personal whatever.
That's good, though. I think in ways when you do try and please everybody, and I knew we'd get to Star Wars in this a podcast, is I think part of the problem with the Disney movies was that they thought they wanted to give people exactly what they thought. So the first one, Force Awakens, the criticism of that one was that it was a rehash.
Fan service.
And then they go too far with the second one where they just kill off everything that people love and associate. So they're just, when you're just reacting rather than trying to create something in its own space.
Yeah.
And, or also with, again, I get back to that internal logic where if you're going to make a trilogy, at least have the trilogy be consistent. But it's clear, and J.J. Abrams said that prior to filming Force Awakens, they did not know how the trilogy was going to end prior to starting. Like, they wanted just to get it out quickly before, like, I guess, before the actors died too. So it's just a whole
business stuff. That's the issue with everything. Maybe now, and the 80s were probably complicated too. But like, it's such a machine now. Like, especially for Disney, if you're not making $1 billion off this thing, you're like, well, that sucks. We're not doing another. You know, we're in the 80s.
Like Solo, they're just like only made $500 million.
Yeah,
it's
then
trash.
Well, then they cut the Yoda and the Boba Fett and the Obi-Wan spinoffs. Just like wasn't good enough, and so like
the Obi-Wan's got to be a mistake.
And I'm sure all of them will end up
to cut that one.
Well, I think they'll all end up being just lower production and on the streaming service now.
Maybe
at
so.
this point.
I want to see more of Ewan McGregor.
Yeah, I do too.
I want to see Ewan McGregor do some more.
I thought it was good
lightsaber fights because he was
a Qui-Gon guy.
Down.
I like Qui-Gon as well.
I was the kid watching. I'm making this up. It's like 1999. I'm like 8 or whatever, and we go to see Phantom Menace. And I remember, once again, it's interesting. Obviously, how your experiences change. I was so into Star Wars that literally the movie could be them like dropping their pants and just taking a shit on the ground. I'm like, this is amazing.
No, everybody loved it. But, it was received really well from a younger generation.
There's two parts that are amazing, which is pod racing. Qui-Gon, I think, is an interesting character, but Darth Maul, when he did that dual lightsaber,
he's the best.
Like,
fuck Darth Vader.
I lost my mind. The fact that they killed him. Obviously they couldn't anticipate, and I know he came back, like he was, but
he's back.
Yeah. He's back with a vengeance.
Back.
But
spoiler alerts.
Yeah, it's just interesting to me where you don't revere or take care of your own work, and I think ultimately what I'd say with the Star Wars universe is Lucas never intended it to truly be a universe, meaning that it has, once again, its own internal logic. Whereas I'll give Game of Thrones, George R.R. Martin, that old fuck thought about everything. You know what I mean? And there
Except
are problems.
How to finish the last book.
There's problems with everything, but like it's kind of like a Tolkien. Not to equate the two, because I think Tolkien's on another level. But you ask him a question about his world. If you ask anything about whatever, like Morgoth, this and that,
what kind of moss grows on this part of the country,
he can answer like that. If you ask Lucas a basic question about like why are there no AIs, he would just, I didn't write it that way. Like, he wouldn't. And so Star Wars is Star Wars to me is like one of those sandbox games that come out now, like Just Cause or some of the other ones, or even in ways Skyrim, where it's a big world that's very surface deep. And so as they begin to explore it more, it's up to creators to fill in those gaps.
Goes back to something you were saying about the different dialects being based off of stereotypes.
And anyone that disagrees, that's like, bro, how can you even say that? I'm like, shut up. We could use the audio and linguistics get an expert. It's clear.
It's pretty clear. But I think that what that is a lack of imagination.
Yes, for sure.
I don't.
Rushed.
I can't make it. I can make up one more thing or two more things, but I can't make up 6 or 10 or 15 more things.
Or lack of focus on priority. Like it maybe to Lucas, like, nah, I don't think that matters for my image of this thing, and he's more focused on what Anakin's fucking metachlorian count is, and he wants that number to be perfect. Who knows where motherfuckers' focus is or what they think is important? Because when you're creating a big piece like you're talking about, like, you're a big fan of sci-fi and worlds and stuff. So then when you create your own, you're focusing in on what you think is important, which is the depth of the world.
Yes.
Where Lucas might not think depth of the world is important to him.
You know what he thinks, Mike? Incest.
He might be insanely into just the lightsaber fights. Or he might be super into pod racing, right?
Yeah.
Lucas himself, and so what turned out dope? The pod racing turned out dope, like
my brother has a line because Lucas has his, what's it called? It's called Skywalker Ranch, where like he lived or whatever.
Yeah.
And my brother said the line after he saw, because we got older as we saw the prequels, right? So the first one, blown away. By the time second one came out, we were already kind of a little too old.
I was too cool for school. I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it until I was like 25.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's so funny how that works. So we reached that age, but after we watched the second one and it sucked, My brother said the line that made me laugh out loud because George Lucas lives on Skywalker Ranch. He's like, that motherfucker ate too many Wookiee burgers, man. Because he's making his own bullshit. Like, he's like, a Wookiee burger. Like, he has the things he's focusing on are just not
paints
things.
his own milk blue every morning.
Yeah, or the question I want to ask is with all these creators, like, why incest, bro? Like, I'm watching Game of Thrones. I get that it happened.
Yeah.
But the focus and the weird in Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones is
in a weird way
pretty
how
in your
much
face.
it's the most passionate also of the love scenes.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean, Jim? Like,
for sure.
It's one thing to like incest is a thing that happened, like whatever.
So
but,
is
like,
masturbation, but you don't make that the most romantic thing ever.
The only true romance in Game of Thrones is between the incest brother and sister,
It's true.
Kind of like Luke and Leia, where it's like I'm glad you just but
it all like parodies, like I think in the Family Guy parody of Star Wars and like other things, they always talk about like, they fucked. Like it's just not in the movie. Like they can't play it's a PG movie. Like Luke and Leia fucked. You fucked your sister.
Yeah. Why do you think? Actually, imagine that comes out in the 9th upcoming one. Whatever. Do they have a name for it or no?
No, not yet.
No, not yet.
It's out though, right? In like 6 months.
It's 6 months, still no name. Because apparently there's too much of a spoiler associated with the name of the film because they couldn't come up with anything else. I don't know.
Then to make up a new goddamn name if it's a spoiler.
Well, it's the same thing with Avengers.
Everybody's dead.
Avengers,
Endgame. Oh, wonder what happens.
Oh, yeah. I'm gonna walk out of it and I walk out of the theater and like Earth is gonna be gone. It's gonna be like the Twilight Zone episode.
Isn't it weird though, Jim? The fact. So what's cool about the Avengers with Marvel, I will say, is they've dealt with the multiverse and multi-universes so often, and they rewrite because it's a comic book. They have to restart the world so many times. They can have that ending. I actually make the prediction that Avengers Endgame will have a greater cultural impact than Episode 9 will. Like how normally.
Probably right now with the hype.
Yeah, like Return of the Jedi came out. It's like wow, like that's the end of the Star Wars trilogy.
They've stayed relevant longer and better.
20 plus
Marvel
movies?
has right now. Yeah. Well, and every movie's like kind of a hitter. Like everyone said, Captain Marvel's going to be a piece of shit, and that thing broke box office records too. So like they've stayed relevant. They've stayed memey. Connor likes to say like if you're fucking relevant in memes, you're relevant in pop culture, and it's 1000% true. Like meme power is real, and they've stayed that. Like there's been a Thanos meme every week for
forever,
3 years. They're just coming harder now, where Star Wars hasn't tapped into this generation.
We're coming harder, all right.
I'm coming.
It's called incest.
Leia. Should we get to a question?
Back to that for just a second. We're gonna take a break and reset for the question.
Yeah. I thought this was the podcast.
This is its own episode. This is a
Mama's Boys 50%.
Yeah, folks, Jim, I apologize if I went off rails, but you start on a conversation. I'm like, hey, man, yeah, like
no, we haven't had a chance to just like roll
shoot the shit
ever. Yeah, this is a.
Well, you guys have great dynamic between you two.
Well, thank you. This has been a highly structured show, and we our opening segment.
Omar broke the structure.
Like I always do.
Well, see, that comes back to the imperfection.
Oh, okay.
Every once in a while, you have to
controlled
break format.
my basketball.
If you break format.
Yeah.
My basketball coach used to yell at me all the time. Shout out to Dean Stark. Form through function or function through form or something. Yeah, you just fucking yell at me all the time. Meaning that I wanted to cause chaos, but he wanted me to cause chaos within what the fuck he wanted me to do.
So is your chaos chaotic good, chaotic neutral?
Form through. What was it called? Form through. I forgot what.
He said you could suck a golf ball through a garden hose. You're like, what?
Coach, what does that have to do with anything?
Why would somebody put a golf ball in a garden hose? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Where was I? Oh, back to incest for just a second. Usually, historically, when there's close relations that get married, there's a political reason for it.
Yeah,
and in Game of Thrones, that is totally out the window.
Yeah,
it's totally out the window.
She's marrying everybody else.
One of his major themes in Game of Thrones is, and Jaime Lannister says this, is you don't choose who you love. But they get back to that in multiple ways from multiple arcs. But the central one are those guys, and you nailed it where you said it was for political reasons,
right?
Often, like pretty much always,
it was very, very common, not all that long ago too. Even back to the current Queen of England, there was a reason why she was the queen and why she married who she married. I mean,
and the Tsar, once again, like King George looked the same as the Tsar because they all basically have the same bloodline.
Yeah, they're all freaking Germans.
Yeah,
when it comes right down to it. Yeah. Anyway, should we bring this one in for a landing? Anybody have anything relevant that we haven't covered in the bullshit part of this?
Omar, where can people find you?
They could find me on YouTube, just my name, Omar Isuf, and then on Instagram. That's pretty much it.
Alrighty.
No, I enjoyed the shit out of that. I just, I wonder what the theme. Was there a theme, Jim, for that episode or no?
Oh,
No,
I don't know.
we'll
Find out.
We have a question for you next.
We have a question
That I was
next.
going to wrap into this, but it sounds we're doing separate.
Yeah,
So,
we'll do separate episodes.
give us a like, subscribe, rating, review, tell your friends, and episode 2 is coming with a real answer.
Yeah. I am at the Jim McD everywhere. The show is 50% facts, where 50% is percent is a word. And man, did I listen to a whole podcast on that today. And Silent Mike is Silent Mike.
I'm 100% feelings.
Yeah,
100% feelings. All right, we're gonna pause here, and then we're gonna put together an actual episode of the show.
sorry, man. I was just ripping off a thing.
No, that was the intention. I knew we were gonna need to do that one first anyway because
I fucked it up, guys.
no, because we haven't talked. And so
Connor, I fucked up. That's why I should have. When Mike said, Jim, oh yeah, we'll have Omar on the episode. Connor was like,